This video is sponsored by Crimson Manifesto and Knuckles OX. Hey friends, and once again, special shout out to the patrons and channel members who get a chance to see this video early. That said, unlike with non-patron exclusive stuff, I'm gonna go ahead and roll you guys' names here on the screen at the beginning, and thank you before the show since regular viewers won't be seeing this until the story completes for you guys, or they break that big like goal on part 1. Also, stay tuned for voting on what the next Patreon exclusive series will be after the Pigero finale. Dominique, Pizza15X, Aaron Winters, Normandy 1998, Xiao Pai, Coder SV3, Ronan Charzard, Daniel Smith, Drax, Dylan Wolfdog 31, Infernate Beast 326, Jay Uray, Johnny Narku, Omar Cousin, Snow Slash Memes and more, Stephen Norton, Taryn, The Shadows, Vegeta What If, Alamancer, B, Blood Down, Inebriated, John Sullivan, Trent Rouse, Dark Shadows, Pokemon Trainer Cam, River Joy, Elijah Edwards, Mr. Hamtastic, Jesus is King, Half an Onion, and Angel Gonzalez. Thanks to all these generous people, I'm able to bring you dope stories like Pigero, which kinda defies modern Dragon Ball What If meta, and allows me to work with awesome artists like Valerius Vaya. So if you'd like to join their ranks, consider becoming a YouTube channel member or a Beyond tier patron yourself. Now, without further ado, on to the show. The newly created Super Namekian, while thankful to the Earthlings for the sudden assistance, is not naive enough to instantly be too trusting. Even having sensed the difference between them and Frieza's men, he has to ask what they need from the dragon. There is a small moment of pause, as the eldest Earthling martial artist representing the Earth, Tien speaks with a heavy weight on his shoulders, due to his past as an assassin. However, he tightens his resolve to continue living by carrying the lives he's taken with him, sincerely apologizing for barging onto the Namekian's planet. While Yamcha, a former petty bandit, smugly boasts that they survived a run-in with one of Frieza's guys back home. Still, his earnest sense of heroism doesn't completely hide the tremble in his stance as they're facing the power of Frieza's favorite henchman. But Pigero, as a former orphan and street thug though, hopefully admits their entire mission is just about bringing his master and their friend Chaozu back, woefully stating they can't afford to let any more lives be lost, his youthful vigor aiding him from tiring as much as his mentors. Thus, his accumulated battle damage was actually the greatest. Sensing all this bravery and genuine passion, the elders from Dende's village urged the warrior Namekian to do the same, causing the scowling protector to pause and regret his rashness, especially if it meant scorning help of any kind in such a crisis, as he apologized for his hastiness, citing that as the increase in power from a triple fusion seemed worthless in the face of the enemy leader, he had almost felt disheartened, a sentiment all can attest to having felt as well. So it is that they all press on to Lord Guru's post-haste, feeling bonded in the shared admission of the fear of death. Meanwhile, Chi-Chi has seen the group of Goku, Gohan, and Yajirobe off as they set out to Namek, after their flight preparations are fully completed as per Dr. Bri's original intent. Thus, as a result, the Capsule Corp crew launched from Earth about a day and a half later, as with Yajirobe along for the ride, along with 2 ravenously trained Saiyans, the greatest amount of furnishing and provisions is absolutely critical. However, thanks to this, both father and son are already seeing better gains from the first day of their gravity training, as after finding that the portly Ronin hadn't lost his sharp potential in the last few years, Goku had begun to counter him far more in the time it's taking to help Gohan gain full control of his power. That way can still sneak in a good bit of solo training, and thus allowing for them to start strong with this high intensity or HIT training as Gohan so studiously dubbed it. Speaking of, Gohan had been nervous to see Pigero again, but thinks back on his parents encouraging him to never fear apologizing to a friend, giving him strength to make his desire to have them all go home and be a big happy family again a reality, one only tangible once this next challenge was overcome. This gives Gohan a stronger resolve than he's ever known, allowing him to push beyond his mental and physical limit, focusing his rage into his full power more consistently and potently, and thus forcing Goku to train with the Kaioken a lot more just to keep up with him. One would initially think Yajirobe would be left behind in all this, but between Gohan's studious and pleasantly polite nature, and being goaded by Goku to continue providing his aid, the samurai is somehow not left behind in this endeavor, wagering his prize of swordsman to soon discover his own solution to the problem. Back on Namek, Vegeta enjoys showing his full strength to Zarbon and Dodoria, engaging both at the same time, and holding more than his own, since his power, sensitivity to ki, and combat skill have grown exponentially since Earth. He notes so that even considering with Zarbon's transformation combined with Dodoria, they were once estimated to be able to even exceed the highest recorded native power level on this high-end planet, it is only enough to just barely make the Saiyan Prince break a sweat. Almost like they were simply a warm-up, thanks to a new mysterious technique that allows him to wildly fluctuate his battle power in response to their attacks, seeing them quickly brought to kneel at his overwhelming power. Just when the two are sure the bloodlusted warrior will waste them, Vegeta relents, calling for someone to reveal themselves and carry out their orders. And much to Zarbon and Dodoria's shock, that person is Qui, as Vegeta haughtily insists the two consider what he is about to tell them very carefully. At the same time, the Namekian refugees and Kame ship team arrive to Guru's, where Tien begrudgingly continues to act as their group's leader, and thus has his mind read to prove their intention, resulting in the Earth and Namek's alliance being set steadfast, as in the same moment, the Elder exerts himself so that Tien has his potential unlocked, shooting his power initially up to 23,000, the same immediately happening for Yamcha as well, seeing him rise to 22,000. And not surprisingly, Pigero's power increases up to 27,000, due to having a bit more untapped potential than the older humans. Now, much more confident in their abilities bolstered by the faith the Namekians are placing in them, the trio of Earthlings set off to begin taking back Dragon Balls, hoping this spike in potential won't be the end of their rapid growth if they want to pull this off. Back with Vegeta, he's just finished explaining the concept of a Zenkai boost to Frieza's favorite dog's bodies. Dodoria is a bit too slow to catch on instantly while he is still breathing, but Zarbon, hurting in both his pride and his physical bruises, explains that Vegeta is insinuating his ability to lead a successful hostile takeover from Frieza. At this, Qui confirms, very dryly admitting he's only going along with this until Vegeta runs into Frieza so he can throw him under the bus, being rather shameless in his lack of faith of the Saiyan-led coup d'etat. Redirecting the conversation, Vegeta cites his new ability and his tail as the reason for his confidence, making it a bit infectious as he appeals to their shared greed for power and wealth, and extends to the group the same deal he's offered Qui, a very handsome severance pay once his Saiyan Empire was re-established, and of course their miserable lives. Zarbon tries to bluff their leverage by citing Frieza's ability to transform as well, but Vegeta without missing a beat blows this warning completely off, egotistically stating such parlor tricks don't matter to him, especially since he's become what Frieza fears most. A bit nervously, Qui asks what's next, to which Vegeta gives a devilish smile, growling that next they're gonna beat him within an inch of his life, and threatening that if they know what's good for their own lives and their bank accounts, they'll stop within that inch. Mere hours afterwards, the trio of soldiers returned to Frieza's mother's ship with a defeated and thoroughly jumped Vegeta, whom was very much not given the faith of a one-on-one, a fact Frieza is most pleased with, as he eagerly orders him to place the monkey in a healing chamber so he can enjoy toying with him before he kills him finally. Dutifully, they all slink off to follow the order, anxiously glancing between themselves as they stare into Vegeta's tank, and wonder if Frieza's empire really is about to collapse, while Vegeta continues to plot, sensing bits and pieces of what's going on around him, and being particularly interested in feeling the key of the Earthlings and incoming Ginyu Force, as he can already foresee a clash between the two, as the perfect time to take the Dragon Balls from Frieza and set himself up for a flawless victory. A few days pass as the Earthlings collect the remaining Dragon Ball from an outlying village, and advise its residents to go into hiding, while Vegeta focuses on keeping his now vastly increased power level balanced at exactly his reading before arriving to Earth, appearing to still be just as powerful as Qui. However, suddenly, those who can sense Ki all feel significant power levels entering the planet's atmosphere, and as this happens, Vegeta springs his trap, escaping from the healing pod, destroying a good chunk of Frieza's favorite ship to lure him and his men away from the Dragon Balls, and then escaping with all 5 of them right under the Emperor's nose, causing him to explode with rage by the time Captain Ginyu and his men arrive to the ship for new orders. Stressing his loss of any remaining patience with failure, Frieza has the Ginyu Force, Zarbon, Dodoria, and Qui all equipped with brand new scouters, and orders them to begin sweeping the planet for Vegeta and the rest of his Dragon Balls by any means necessary, breaking into different directions after the Ginyus insist on a big bloodlusted game of rock paper scissors before posing. The soldiers end up eventually forming much smaller tag teams to scan the planet more efficiently, with Vegeta lying low for now to discover a suitable hiding spot for the Dragon Balls. Tien and the others have to now go on the offensive, since their 2 Dragon Balls are currently closer together, and the approaching power levels of a duo made of Raccoon and Guldo don't make well for that fact, forcing Tien and Yamcha to volunteer to intercept them. However, as Gonga is not the Grand Elder's traditional attendant as Nail is, he isn't bound to stay by the Elder's side, and thus he agrees to go with them, sensing one of the powers to be far too much for the 2 alone. Nail too agrees with this course of action, as with so many enemies, they need to start evening the odds as quickly as possible. Thus, as that trio break off, he is surprisingly open to Picaro's own risky plan, as he expresses his feeling that they could possibly build off Lord Guru's potential boost if they were to be given some challenges they could actually handle, like the one Tien's group is heading to face currently. Intrigued by Picaro's suggestion of his idea of being dirty but effective, Nail can see the benefit of allowing him to sneak around and ambush a few of the power levels he can sense himself to be well above. That way they can begin thinning the herd while using the Dragon Radar to see if they can swipe any more Dragon Balls while everyone is distracted. Meanwhile, meeting up with the Earthling martial artists, the Ginyus attempt to play rock, paper, scissors again. But as the Namekian Earthling trio share a sweat drop, all decide they don't feel like being courteous enough to let them finish, all launching recently improved signature techniques in an impromptu Super Kamehameha, Kikoho, and Mystic Flash Rising Rush combo, gasping as their scouters read a combined power over 150,000 while the trio of powerful ki attacks nearly consume he and Raccoon both. Guldo holds his breath just in time, using all his psychic power from the start just to move himself and Raccoon from the being's path as they read high enough to decimate them both. Once time begins to move again, the Frieza soldier whose name rhymes with Doom does not seem very grateful for the save, as he rushes and blows the Earthlings back with a flying double lariat, ordering Goro to stay out of the way from here on out as he attempts to speed blitz and follow up on them for another attack. But incensed by this, the pudgy green alien instead unloads a barrage of ki blasts to growl them, forcing them to stay in the brute's path and thus still proving his usefulness. However, like a well-oiled machine, Yamcha and Tien go back to back, the Triclops using the next moment to unleash a solar flare that stuns Raccoon, while Yamcha again pulls on and super focuses his ki to create a spirit ball which accurately consumes and it grows stronger from bouncing off Goro's rain of ki blasts, forcing the ugly alien to activate his ability again to avoid the first pass of the now giant spirit ball pursuing him. Meanwhile, Gonga goes in for the killing blow against Raccoon as the biggest threat, constricting his arms around him and tossing him into the water in an attempt to drown the behemoth. However, Raccoon is able to power out and escape his would-be watery tomb, driving Gonga into the water himself with his eraser gun. As he does and seems quite in control, Goro decides to spend the last use of his time skip to save himself, holding his breath long enough to leave the area and thus Raccoon to his work. So when time resumes and Goro is nowhere to be seen, both Tien and Yamcha hone in on the big bruiser, first slamming him with a spirit ball that hits and creates a massive crater in the planet. And even though it is shocking when Raccoon tries to jump scare them and use his ultra fighting bomber, the various poses and dance moves leave him open to a four-sided version of Tien's new machine gun Dodon Ray technique, peppering Raccoon with high intensity ki bolts until ultimately he resembles a slice of Swiss cheese, and thus falls defeated, while the duo go to help up Gonga and track down Goro. At the same time, having found the perfect hiding spot, Vegeta decides it is time to send a message, and so after relocating to a nearby abandoned village, powers up to his very maximum, the scouters around him all reading a power well over 360,000, before it rapidly begins to fall. The implication to the former Frieza soldiers the prince had made his bargain with being clear, as they decide to converge on the village, to Vegeta's great delight, as the first arrivals just so happen to be the strangely impromptu duo of Qui and Ginyu. This seeing the Weasley lapdog laugh that Vegeta is in for it now, while slyly winking to him. A clear sign that the purple punks seem to be back in Vegeta's place, since as far as Qui was aware, Frieza's higher forms were merely rumors. Thus, as Captain Ginyu eagerly leaps into the fray against Vegeta, Qui hangs back just as he did with Zarbon and Doria, his aid really just being a hidden obstacle for the victim in case they decide to refuse Vegeta's alliance. However, what cannot be accounted for is Captain Ginyu recognizing his ill match for Vegeta's power, and seemingly trying to self-delete in the face of it, only to spread his body out wide as he calls for a strange new technique of his own. Meanwhile, Pigero is speeding towards where Vegeta has moved his 5 Dragon Balls to as low-key as he can with a fairly unique advantage, as he is being aided by Bulma's capsules to use a car for this task after a good bit of convincing that sees her joining his ambush recon plan, and thus chauffeuring the pouting teen even as he insists he can drive himself. Still, this way allows him to completely conceal his power and quickly close in on Vegeta's stash. And seeing and sensing no one around, the duo resolve to make the play to take the set back to Guru's and make their wishes before their enemies are the wiser. However, a wrench is thrown in their plans, as very quickly, Zarbon comes across them, and recognizing an opportunity to carry favor with whomever comes out after this power play for the throne, decides to take the Dragon Balls back from the Earthlings, mercilessly transforming from the start before flying in to engage Pigero, whom thankfully now is much more of an equal match. The two engage in a fierce battle, but just as with Nappa, Pigero's fighting skill and the knowledge he has accumulated from his mentors see all of his attacks carrying much more power and control now, resulting in much less wasted energy and making all the difference in the smallest of ways, as Pigero finally gets an opening to use an afterimage, following up by taking the alien warrior off his feet with a quick tsunami slammer, and rolling around to blast him away with a follow-up super explosive demon wave. Just as Zarbon is sent flying, Bulma finishes loading up the Dragon Balls as she and Pigero beat a hasty retreat, but this is where we'll be leaving the story off for right now. That does it for part 4 of What If Pigero Was Canon. How do you think the Earthlings and Namekians will hold out with an extra few days out of the cavalry? Will Goku be successful in helping Gohan to break his limits while attempting to juggle his own training along with Yajirobe's eccentricities? And who will the gaggle of remaining high-end Frieza soldiers end up being loyal to in this brewing Game of Thrones for the Universal Empire? You'll have to find out next time. Until then, see you friends, be sure to take care of yourselves and the world around you, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you guys next time.